Okay, so this is a Morgan horse who I worked maybe an hour or two and has been kind of roamed free and green for maybe its whole life. Don't really know its backstory. It's pretty wary to be caught. Pretty curious about what on earth people are. I don't think it's been handled a whole lot. Kind of halter broke, you can handle it a little bit. The final goal with this horse and the other two Morgan horses that we're working is to have at least one be rideable and the other two be serviceable pack horses. Probably all three will be rideable at the end. And my goal today is to introduce this horse to the saddle, though if we don't get there, that's okay. So I'm just going to walk you through kind of the process of getting the horse familiar with me and with pressure, with moving properly. And the end goal is to have it moving in a way that would support a weight upon its back and have it be okay with it. So one of the primary problems that we're going to run into with this horse, or challenges, is that it's herd bound and it would really rather be with its buddies. It's probably never been away from its buddies. So the first thing I'm going to do is teach it that there is a point of peace that is related to me. And the way I do that is by engaging a mild amount of pressure with the flag, mostly toward his hind end. And then when the horse looks at me and engages with me, I can release pressure, and that gives the horse the impression that I'm a source of peace. So I'm working this whichever way the horse presents it to me. And then when the horse disengages his hind end and faces me, I release. And I'm traveling back and forth across the front of his nose so that I can pick up on his eye and then travel with his body the way it bends. And in the beginning, it's important to really take your time on this part and go in a level of pressure that the horse doesn't present fear of, so that you don't train fear into the horse and train brace into the horse. Because you really want the horse to think that you're the source of sort of relaxing movement and flow. And that's really how you access the body of the horse and the mind of the horse. So I'm just working on getting the horse to look at me and stay looking at me. And then when I turn and walk to his side, I want him to stay with me, and I might just add a little bit. I'm not super concerned if his body faces up just yet. I'm really more interested in his mind being engaged. His body will follow in time. So I don't know how well you can see with the image, but you know, he's fully engaged. His eyes are on me. His ears come on to me. He's pretty high-headed. I would say he still considers me a questionable anomaly in that, to some degree, he hasn't given up all of his fight or flight mechanisms. They're still kind of standing guard. We're starting to see looking and chewing, relaxing of the jaw, lower head movement, lower head position, so he's starting to relax a little more. When a horse's head is high, of course it's up looking for danger, so if you can disengage those upper neck muscles and get him to relax his head, it's a good sign that you're getting relaxation in a way that horses can't really lie about their state, and they're very bad at lying. And we come across horses that lie or been taught to lie, and they're very bad liars. They show their fear, they just don't move away from it. So trying to get the horse a chance to understand that he can move at liberty and he can deal with pressure by moving away from it and also engaging with it kind of simultaneously. Like the answer is in that he can look to the source of pressure, and that will actually make the pressure go away, which is a pretty valuable lesson just in general. And so I haven't really got any movements toward me yet, which is kind of my next iteration of training, is I'd like him to actually bring his body toward me. And these are kind of the precursor movements to that. And there's one. So we're only getting about a 30-minute session today, so wherever we get to is great, and then I'll pick up where we left off on the next video. I probably spent the least amount of time with this horse. I have had a saddle on him, and he took it okay. I think I'm going to take a little more time to introduce him to things like the halter, pressure of lowering his head with the halter, leading him by his feet, which I'll do a little bit of here. But as you can see, the proximity is still an issue with him, in that he doesn't really want me to come near him. So I just work these same maneuvers or messages to him as we go, that you can actually turn the pressure off by facing it and even coming toward it, and coming toward it in a way that is, curious. I'm starting to see steps toward me, and I'm trying to give him the opportunity and the space to do that while engaging his body in a way that helps him do that as well. Disengaging his hind end, not pressuring his head too much. And then I'm approaching him in a way that he's telling me how he would like to be approached. And I want to give him a chance to kind of feel me and try and feel of the message I'm trying to send, and let him categorize me as something that is friendly and maybe even helpful to him. I don't know how well you guys can see this over here. I'm not always going to be able to get him to present in the best camera angle, but just continuing to work on whatever side he gives me, and then trying to introduce him to me being a little bit closer to him, maybe touching him. You can see that there's kind of a space around him where he's just less sure than at distance, and I think that has something to do with how well they are going to be able to evade if I do happen to be predatory, and he has good reason to think so, because humans are predatory. And for him, he would rather default on thinking I'm a predator and leaving, or at least giving himself an out. So he's always looking for that option to go and have more space. But once you can get actual contact with him, you can kind of engage the more sensual or sensational aspect of his body, and you can actually teach him you have fingers, which is pretty nice as well for him, because they're itchy and they don't have fingers. And then I'm just trying to give him opportunities to find the space where there's more peace. So I am denying him options, but I'm not denying him options in a forceful way. I'm moving with him so that the space that he occupies can be clear. He's probably never been scratched under his belly. I find though, once they figure out that you can scratch their itches, they start to think about you in a different way, which is really useful for us in the process of training and getting the horse to do what we want it to do and go where we want it to go. It's really important to be able to get your horse to start looking to you as something that is useful to him, and maybe even beneficial for him, maybe even therapeutic for him, because horses don't really want to have to deal with the pressure. They would rather outsource it to a higher level of leadership, and their standards for leadership are very high, and they're very ingrained in their behavior and their patterns of behavior, and so they're a good feedback mechanism for leadership in general, and also leadership in a very embodied way, because they're really responding to you and your body and everything that you are as a whole. They're not very good at parsing out things, which is another reason they have a spooking mechanism. They spook away from, say, the saddle on the ground or the camera's tripod, which they did both of those things. They just initially think, or at least categorize them as something that's potentially harmful. So I'm just trying to habituate them to me petting him and maybe scratching him and getting him introduced to scratching him in all parts of his body. I've not yet got below the elbow, but he's starting to move in a little more relaxed manner, and I'm not going to block him, but I'm going to let him move and then give him an opportunity to release the pressure again. And I like to work equally on all the proximities, right up close and hands on, and the awkward sort of 2 feet between him and I, and then at a distance where I guess you'd call that the liberty work, where you're actually responding in what Bill Dorrance would call indirect feel, non-physical contact. You're more or less speaking to them with your intent about where you're headed. So here I'm headed to the right, kind of where he's headed, but at a sharper angle, and he's not going to go there if he knows that there's no evasive position over there. And then again, I release when he looks to me. I try to start petting around their neck and shoulder, somewhere that they're more comfortable having me pet them. And then you can kind of work your way up toward their ears and their cheeks and their eyes, and also down to their knees. So we're starting to see where he's considering me as maybe an option to look for a place of peace. He's starting to see that presentation is something that I can release for, and therefore presentation, or a presentation that leads to release of the pressure. And you're looking for things like lowered head, licking and chewing, relaxed breathing, big breaths. There's lots of signs they give you, so that's helpful too. It's not just a abstract feel thing. There are many signs. And I'm trying to let him know, trying to have him let me know what level of pressure he can handle. So even just the flag in my hand and the halter in my hand is plenty. There's a lot of snake-like aspects to the halter that lead the horse to be worried. And then I'm trying to move in a way that's relaxed. It seems like the slow way, but really isn't in the long run. You get a lot more work done if you can introduce the horse in a pace state that allows them to really listen. Because if they get too fear-based, just like us, we don't actually learn, we just react. Sort of suboptimal systems that take over, which save our lives, but aren't very good at higher faculty processing. I'm just trying to give him a window here where he's correct. And I'm also sort of just not allowing him to dart through me or pressure through me. I'm not punishing him for it either. I'm just sort of closing those doors. Try to leave before he leaves too, because they can figure out the pressure can go away if they evade and you go away. You basically teach them to leave. So the timing of the release is really important. And the state you're in is obviously foundational. You have to have a state that's consistent and not reactive, not dramatic, smooth, and kind of consistent in your whole body, so that he can feel of you. Otherwise, you're sending mixed messages. I'm going to go back to more space and just work on drawing him toward me. So just apply a little flag. There's a little bit of pressure on his hind end. And when he looks toward me or walks toward me, I release. So I'm trying to introduce him to human stuff in as many small bites as I can, and have him respond in a way that allows that indicates to me that he's learning. And so having the horse's attention is super important. It's really the same with any training of any animal, is that if you can get their mind, you can get them to engage with you. And if you can get them drawing towards you and have their curiosity, then they'll actually try to learn. And then they're trying to learn what you're trying to teach them, because there's no reason for you to believe that what you're teaching is the right way or is concretized as anything true. The truth is in the outcome that the horse gives you. It's a pragmatic approach to truth, in that the results are what indicate success. It's not theory. So there are sort of rules to live by and to work your horse by, but at the same time, the presentation of the horse is what's going to tell you that. And I think that's one of the things that the underlying bedrock of feel is, that you have to be able to sense when the horse is giving you the type of presentation, is in the type of state, and you're in the type of state that can actually release for the right thing. Not just a presentation of the thing, not just a facade. So they're subtle, but I don't think they're actually that difficult to see, especially if you're in the state that can hear and feel sort of honestly. Of course, it depends on the goal you have with the horse. If you think that the horse should be obedient, well, then you could get that, but you wouldn't get a soft feel. You wouldn't get access to the balancing muscles of the horse, because you'd just be punishing it, and that would just engage its bigger, more flight-based muscles. And so you never really get a soft, relaxed horse, and you never really get a willing horse. You just get a horse that's sort of being scared into obedience, and they're very good at doing that, but you lose a huge gamut of what is possible by not actually letting the horse feel of you and not giving him a choice. Even though he's in a round pen, he's confined, he has options to move. So it's choice within confines. But if the horse knows he can move, then he's going to relax. So here we have him leaning away, he's arcing around me, he's starting to look at me a little bit more. His ears are everywhere, and he's going to be looking at the rest of the world. He's not devoted to me yet, but that's okay. And we're going to work on this so that this becomes the baseline for behavior with the horse. He's around me, and hopefully when he's around other people, though, the presentation of the person will change. It will vary from person to person, and that will vary the outcome, the presentation that the horse gives you. And so it's why we integrate people back with their horses the way we train them, so that they can see what we've done and then bring their elements to it if they like, but they have to know what the horse has been trained to notice and to act like, because it's a very subjective experience. Hence feel is activity. So there are universal things that we're feeling of with the horse, such as how it's moving. There are objective things like, is it disengaging the hind end in a way, like is it disengaging the inside hind leg and stepping it under the body shadow? Is there at least one eye on me, on this arc, on this circle? Am I capable of moving the shoulder over without having him leave? Am I capable of drawing him back when he does leave? Can I tell if the horse is actually here, or if he's just giving me some sort of movement? So I'm going to make my circle bigger, start to get forward steps from the front end. Steps toward me. The goal is to actually kind of have him link up on you. There we go. And he'll actually start to catch onto me with his nose and start pulling himself toward me. So I think you have to be able to draw your horse from the front and drive him from behind, both while having his mind on you. Both are useful. Because the idea is that you're getting synced up on a common vision. I'm going to do it on both sides as well. Horses' brains are bilateral, just like ours, in that there are two hemispheres. Theirs don't bridge as optimally as ours. There's not as much interconnectivity between the two hemispheres, partly because they have so much more monocular vision on either side of their body, so they have to kind of have two consciousnesses in their body, left and right, and then they have their binocular vision in the front, which is sort of a third piece. And I would say the third piece, the binocular vision and the binocular horse, is a result. It's a sum of the two monocular sides of the horse and how they perceive the world. So a horse can end up being very left-sided or very right-sided, very well trained, say, well habituated to people on one side, and completely green on the other because no one went over there. And that will also indicate how well they can bend, because they're not looking that way. So if they're not looking to the left, they're not bending to the left, which means that side, the other side of their body, is going to be short, the right side. If they're always bent to the right, then the right side of their body, all of the muscles that bend them laterally, are going to be shortened, and it's going to be harder for them to bend that way. And it so turns out, as if you use your horse for anything functional, you need it to bend both ways. So again, it's a bit of a pragmatic approach in that we want our horse to be able to do stuff, and we want it to do stuff kind of when it arises, which is, you know, why I value cattle work so much, because you don't always know where and when you're going to have to turn your horse. So you actually have to have your horse listening to you, as opposed to remembering some sort of pattern in a ring. You can do all that ring pattern work stuff with a horse that can listen and feel. There we have the draw. We're starting to see him think. Maybe if he comes toward me, he can actually generate a little bit more peace. And so the release for that has to be even bigger than any other release you've had. And you really want to make sure you're rewarding the attempt, what might be called successive approximation, in that he's getting some idea of it, and it might not be exactly what you want it to be, but it's close. And it's really important to see that, because the horse isn't going to get